When Leona Baker corrected a customer sign at the bank, she didn't expect consequences. She wasn't paid to notice mistakes. She was paid to scrub floors and disappear. 5 languages in her head, none of them useful here. 34 years old, 10 hours a day cleaning, 10 years forgotten. 1 red pen mark, 1 correction on the wrong sign. Within minutes, someone noticed. By noon, whispers followed her through the halls. She wasn't supposed to know better. She wasn't supposed to exist beyond her mop. Dalton from HR made sure she understood. His voice low, words sharp, accusing her of overstepping. Leona said nothing. She had said nothing for a decade, but today that silence felt heavier. Words she mastered: French, Mandarin, Italian pressed at the edges of her mind, unspoken. They told her to stay down, but for the first time, Leona wasn't sure she could. Stay till the end. The twist will redefine what redemption truly means. Leona clocked out at 6. No one looked at her. She passed the lobby, where a manager laughed with a client in broken Spanish. She could have corrected him. She could have made him fluent in minutes. But here, silence was safer. Her bus ride home rattled through cracked streets. She sat alone, thinking of the red marks she made, the rules she broke without knowing. Her mother didn't ask about work anymore. Her sister, 15 and quiet, barely looked up from her books. Dinner was silent. Leona cleaned dishes, wiped counters, studied words, verbs, declensions, idioms in books with cracked spines. She learned languages no one asked her to speak. She built bridges no one saw. At night, she thought of the sign, thought of Dalton's voice in Connais anyone, Suriname, thought of how easy it was to erase someone. But tomorrow she knew they would not erase her so easily. Stay till the end. The twist will redefine what redemption truly means. The next morning, Leona arrived early. She cleaned silently, ignored the stares. At 10, Dalton called her into his office. No greetings, no small talk. Just papers slid across the desk: an incident report. A warning. Unauthorized alterations to company property, he said. Leona's hands stayed still. Her face didn't move. She had practiced stillness for years. Sign it. Dalton's pen clicked, sharp. She read the words: insubordination, overstepping duties. A single signature could end her job, end her rent, end her sister's tuition. Leona thought of her languages, her books, her late nights. She thought of the silence she'd been fed all these years. She reached for the pen, then paused. No, she said. One word, quiet but firm. Dalton blinked. Excuse me, Leona pushed the paper back. She stood. She walked out without another word. Behind her, whispers gathered like smoke. Stay till the end. The twist will redefine what redemption truly means. Leona didn't stop. She cleaned the marble floors, wiped the glass doors, ignored the stares that clung to her like static. Dalton passed by twice, said nothing. She kept her head down, but her mind raced. If she stayed silent, they would forget. If she resisted, they would remember. It was dangerous to be remembered. At break, she sat alone, rereading the rejection emails on her cracked phone. Qualifications excellent, but no relevant experience. Language skills impressive, but not a cultural fit. Over and over, the same polite walls. Leona closed the screen. She wouldn't beg to enter rooms built to exclude her. She wiped her hands on her uniform, stood, and returned to work. The hours stretched thin. She scrubbed harder, moved faster, daring the clock to beat her down. By the end of her shift, her hands ached, but her spine stayed straight. Stay till the end. The twist will redefine what redemption truly means. Leona finished cleaning and returned her supplies without a word. She clocked out, past Dalton without meeting his eyes. On the bus home, she rehearsed dialogues in her headlines in French, Mandarin, Italian. Fluency was muscle memory now, but silence had been drilled deeper. Her stop came. She walked the cracked pavement to the apartment, climbed 3 flights of stairs without thinking. Home was a place of quiet survival. Her mother, asleep on the couch. Her sister, buried in schoolwork. Leona pulled out her notes, recited verb conjugations under her breath. She wasn't studying for a job anymore. She was studying for herself. The rejection letters didn't matter tonight. Neither did Dalton. What mattered was that she still had her mind, her words, her will. She went to bed repeating phrases in Italian, her voice barely a whisper against the weight of the world. Morning came without promise. Another day, another shift. Leona moved through the bank unnoticed, exactly how they preferred. She cleaned, collected trash, polished surfaces. A manager barked orders about a corporate visit. No one told her the details. She wasn't supposed to know. She wasn't supposed to exist. But as she wiped down the reception desk, she caught fragments, delegates arriving, deals to sign, VIP guests. Leona absorbed every word, cataloged every voice. She didn't ask questions. She just listened. Information was currency she couldn't afford to waste. By noon, tension thickened. Staff hurried, polished, corrected. The world outside her mop was spinning faster, and she stayed still at its center, unseen but present. She finished the reception area, pocketed her cloth, and moved to the lobby. That's when she saw him. A man stood alone near the entrance. Dark suit, silver hair, a briefcase clutched tight. He looked out of place, uncertain. He approached the desk, spoke. The receptionist froze. Leona heard the language instantly, Mandarin, crisp, formal. The receptionist stammered, glanced around helplessly. Leona paused, cloth in hand. She could translate every word. She could bridge the gap. But stepping forward would mean being seen. It would mean risk. The man tried again, his tone polite but firm. The receptionist apologized, flustered. Leona inhaled slowly. 5 languages filled her mind. 5 bridges waiting to be built. She stepped forward before she could stop herself. "May I help you, sir?" she said, in flawless Mandarin. The man's face lit up with relief. The receptionist blinked, startled. Leona smiled, small but steady, and waited. The man explained his situation. A delegate from a major firm, here for a signing. Confused by instructions, unable to find his contact, Leona translated swiftly, relayed the information to the staff. They scrambled. She stayed calm, precise. Within minutes, the situation smoothed. The man nodded, thanked her profusely. The receptionist mumbled a half-hearted thanks. Leona returned to her cart, heart pounding. She hadn't planned to intervene. She hadn't wanted to be seen. But something deeper than fear had moved her. As she resumed cleaning, a figure approached. Not Dalton. Someone else. Elsa Whitmore, the CEO. Sharp suit, sharper eyes. She had seen everything. "What's your name?" she asked. Leona straightened to, "Leona Baker," she said, voice clear, steady. Elsa nodded once. "Come with me. Stay till the end. The twist will redefine what redemption truly means." Leona followed Elsa through the maze of glass and marble. No words were exchanged. No explanations given. They stopped at a conference room. Inside, a small group of executives argued in low, urgent tones. Elsa entered without knocking. Heads turned. Silence fell. Leona stood at the threshold, invisible yet undeniable. Elsa spoke first. "This is Leona Baker. She speaks Mandarin fluently." No one responded. A document lay on the table, contracts, terms, agreements. Leona saw the problem instantly. Errors in translation. Misinterpretations that could collapse deals. Elsa handed her the document. "Fix it." Leona took a breath. Years of study, of silence, of erasure pressed down. She lifted the pen and began to work. Her hand moved quickly, confidently. She corrected clauses, rephrased delicate terms, removed unintended insults. The executives watched, uneasy. Leona finished, set the pen down. Elsa skimmed the pages, nodded. No praise, no thanks. Just a small, satisfied smile. Elsa turned to the others. "This deal holds because of her." A heavy pause. One executive cleared his throat, mumbled agreement. Leona stood still, waiting. Elsa glanced at her. "Be in my office tomorrow." 10 Emery 1 It wasn't a request. Leona nodded once, tucked her hands behind her back, and stepped out. Heart pounding, mind racing. For the first time in years, she hadn't disappeared. She had emerged. The next day, Leona entered Elsa's office on time. No uniform. No. Read Henry Marson. Just her. Elsa sat behind a sleek desk, papers neatly stacked. She gestured for Leona to sit. You have a degree in linguistics, Elsa said. No preamble. You speak 5 languages. Leona nodded. I do. Elsa studied her. And you've been a janitor here for how long? 10 years. Another pause. Why Leona met her gaze. Because no one asked what else I could do. Elsa tapped her pen once, twice. I'm asking now. She slid a contract across the desk. Position International Communications Liaison. Salary more than Leona had ever imagined. Leona didn't hesitate. She picked up the pen. She signed her name with a steady hand. Elsa nodded once, approving. Welcome to the team. Leona rose. Her hands didn't shake. Her heart didn't race. She thanked Elsa, left the office, and walked back through the bank. Staff stared. Whispers followed. But this time, Leona didn't shrink. She stood taller. She moved with purpose. Dalton passed her in the hall. He looked away first. Leona smiled. A small, private victory. She wasn't invisible anymore. She never had been. They just hadn't seen her. Until now. Leona adapted quickly to her new role. She attended meetings where she once cleaned unnoticed. She studied the fine print of contracts, the sharp edges of diplomacy. Language was her weapon, precision her armor. She worked longer hours, took fewer breaks, learned the rhythms of power spoken and unspoken. Elsa tested her with projects no one else wanted, clients known for their impossible standards, deadlines impossible to meet. Leona delivered. She didn't flinch when overlooked, didn't falter when doubted. She sat quietly at tables once closed to her, listened, observed, and when she spoke carefully, each word a calculated choice. Her reputation grew not because she was loud, but because she was right. Every success added another layer to her armor. Every setback, another lesson. She built herself from silence, from skill, from the years no one had seen. Stay till the end, the twist will redefine what redemption truly means. Leona's schedule was relentless. Meetings bled into translations, translations into consultations. She worked when others rested, studied when others slept. Elsa loaded her with projects not to break her, but to prove her. Leona didn't crack. She learned every nuance, anticipated every miscommunication. International clients, who once scoffed at the idea of an interpreter, now sought her out. She corrected contracts that would have bankrupted departments. She saved deals others thought lost. Not with noise, with precision. Word by word, phrase by phrase. Leona built a new reputation, not the janitor who dared to speak, but the expert who couldn't be ignored. She didn't boast. She didn't celebrate. She collected victories like stepping stones, building a path only she could walk. Behind every meeting door that opened was another she forced to unlock with nothing but relentless skill. With each win, Leona became a force. Promotions came, pay raises followed, invitations landed on her desk conferences, seminars, panels. The same executives who once ignored her now lined up for advice. But Leona didn't forget. She remembered the cracked tiles of the staff entrance, the cheap bleach smell of janitor closets. She remembered how it felt to be overlooked, dismissed, erased. So when she passed by cleaning staff or cafeteria workers, she didn't look through them. She saw them. She spoke to them by name. She asked about their lives. She listened. Small gestures, quiet acts, but powerful. Because Leona knew invisibility wasn't a natural state. It was imposed. And sometimes all it took to shatter it was a glance, a word, a reminder, I see you. You matter. She carried that knowledge like armor, silent but unbreakable. When Elsa summoned her to the office again, Leona didn't hesitate. She walked in, calm, composed. Elsa got straight to the point. We're launching an internal audit. I want you to lead it. Leona raised an eyebrow. Elsa continued. Skills, degrees, languages. I want to know what's hidden in this company. It wasn't a suggestion. Leona nodded. Over the next months, she built the Hidden Potential program. They reviewed resumes, held interviews, uncovered stories buried under years of neglect. They found clerks with law degrees, janitors fluent in 3 languages, cafeteria workers who had been teachers abroad. Leona mentored them herself. She taught them how to navigate the spaces that once ignored them, how to wield their skills without apology. Slowly, the bank changed. Not overnight, but irrevocably. Talent that had been hidden now shined. And Leona stood at the center, the silent architect of a revolution no one saw coming. Leona didn't just build the program, she built people. She met with each candidate, not as a superior, but as an equal. She listened to their stories, the invisible resumes life had forced them to write. She heard of war zones, refugee camps, families left behind, degrees unrecognized. She heard of sacrifice stitched into silence. Leona offered more than a promotion. She offered dignity, recognition. The first graduation ceremony for hidden potential wasn't grand. It didn't need to be. Families packed into the lobby. Children in hand-me-down shoes clapped as parents received certificates. Tears blurred the polished floor. Leona stood at the back, unnoticed by most, watching pride replace shame. She didn't give speeches. She didn't take credit. She stood quietly, feeling the weight of what had been built. This wasn't charity. It was justice. Recognition didn't arrive in flashing cameras or polished speeches. It came quietly, a handwritten note, a shy handshake, a grateful nod in a crowded hallway. Leona collected these moments, tucking them into a small box she kept at home. Late at night, when fatigue clawed at her, she would open it and remember. Success wasn't framed degrees or executive titles. It was seeing others walk through doors once bolted shut. It was teaching them to build their own. And in every silent triumph, she found fuel to keep pushing, unseen yet unstoppable. One evening, Leona received an invitation. Malin Warnasaroden, a university she once dreamed of attending, offered her an honorary doctorate in linguistics. She sat quietly, rereading the letter. It wasn't just about the degree. It was about everything it symbolized, every rejection, every silence, every closed door now opening. She flew to Italy alone, walked across the stage in a cap and gown, heard her name spoken with respect, not dismissal. In the crowd, she saw faces like hers. Young women, old men, students, dreamers. She smiled, knowing she wasn't walking alone. She was walking for all those who had been told to stay silent. She accepted the diploma with steady hands. She returned home with it tucked under her arm, a quiet victory stitched from a lifetime of invisible battles. Back at the bank, things continued to change. Promotions were no longer whispers behind closed doors. They were policies, transparent and fair. The staff entrance no longer felt like a back door to nowhere. It became a corridor of opportunity. Leona kept her office door open. She met with anyone who knocked, no titles needed. She mentored quietly, fiercely. She demanded excellence but offered grace. Those who passed through her door left changed, carrying pieces of her resilience with them. Leona didn't seek the spotlight. She illuminated others. And slowly, silently, the institution she once mopped after hours became a beacon, not because of one woman's ambition, but because of one woman's refusal to remain unseen. Leona's story didn't make headlines. It didn't need to. The real victories were quieter. Employees once overlooked now led departments. Clients noticed the difference, a bank that didn't just talk about diversity, but lived it. Elsa watched it all from a distance, her trust in Leona never wavering. At quarterly meetings, when numbers improved and surveys praised inclusivity, Elsa would glance across the table at Leona. A nod, so, a small smile, recognition without spectacle. Leona understood. She hadn't climbed alone. She had pulled others with her, one quiet hand at a time. The janitor's cart was long gone, but the memory remained, a reminder of how far invisible hands could reach when given the chance to rise. Late one evening, long after the bank emptied, Leona walked through the halls. No heels clicked, no phones rang, just the hum of quiet victory. She paused by the maintenance closet. It still smelled faintly of bleach and old rubber. She touched the door lightly, remembering the girl who once stood there, unseen, unheard. She smiled not with bitterness, but with gratitude. Without that silence, she wouldn't have learned patience. Without being unseen, she wouldn't have valued sight. She turned away, steps firm, purpose clear. Her journey wasn't about forgetting the past. It was about honoring it. She had learned to see, to listen, to build. Now, she taught others to do the same. Years later, a young intern knocked on Leona's office door. Nervous, eager, unsure. Leona invited her in, offered a chair. The girl stumbled over words, explained she was first generation, studying at night, working 2 jobs. Leona listened, patient. She saw herself in the girl's tired eyes, her clenched hands. She offered advice, guidance, not pity. She spoke of resilience, of the power of silence when used wisely, of the importance of knowing your worth before anyone else did. The girl left with a promise, a recommendation, a mentor, a chance. Leona leaned back, watching her go. Another step forward. Another light kindled. On the anniversary of Hidden Potential's launch, the bank held a small ceremony. No press, no cameras, just stories. Leona sat in the back, listening as employees spoke. Janitors turned analysts. Cafeteria workers turned HR specialists. Security guards turned operations managers. They spoke of hope, of second chances, of doors opening where walls once stood. Leona didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her work spoke louder than any speech could. As applause filled the room, she allowed herself a rare moment of pride. Not for the titles, not for the accolades, but for the simple, profound truth change had happened. And it had started with a single act, a janitor correcting a sign no one else noticed. Leona stayed after the ceremony, lingering as others left. She collected empty cups, folded chairs, habits hard to break. Elsa found her there. No words at first, just a nod of shared understanding. Then Elsa said, "You started this." Leona smiled. "We started this." It wasn't modesty, it was truth. Change wasn't built alone. It needed allies, believers, stubborn hearts. Elsa handed her a small plaque, simple, understated. In recognition of unseen builders, it read. Leona traced the engraved letters with her thumb, feeling their weight. She tucked it under her arm. No speeches, no fanfare. Just a quiet acknowledgement that sometimes the most important work is the work no one sees. At home, Leona placed the plaque beside her box of letters. She sat quietly, absorbing the stillness. Success didn't roar. It whispered. It settled into bones and breath. It changed how you carried yourself, how you saw others. Her sister, now in college, called to share good news, a scholarship, a job offer. Leona listened, pride threading through her voice. She thought of her mother, asleep on the couch all those years ago, of nights spent memorizing verb conjugations by dim light, of a janitor's cart pushed through marble halls. She thought of how far silence had carried her, and how far she had carried herself beyond it. Weeks later, an email arrived. Another invitation, this time from a global organization recognizing contributions to social equity. Leona hesitated. Public events weren't her style, but this wasn't about her. It was about everyone still unseen, still unheard. She accepted. At the ceremony, when as flashbulbs popped and speeches droned, Leona stood quietly backstage. When her name was called, she walked out, steady and calm. She accepted the award with the same hands that once scrubbed floors. She spoke briefly, simply, visibility is not about standing in light. It's about refusing to disappear into darkness. The applause was loud, but she heard the silence between claps, the space where real change lives. Leona returned to work the next day. No fanfare, no banners. Just a new project on her desk, a new challenge to meet. She didn't believe in resting on past victories. Each success was a step, not a destination. She moved through meetings with quiet authority, a force woven from patience and precision. She mentored another cohort of hidden potential candidates, their stories echoing her own. She reminded them that skill is not a favor, it's a fact. That dignity isn't granted, it's claimed. That change is not gifted, it's built. Brick by brick, word by word, act by silent act. Leona stayed late not because she had to, but because it mattered. She reviewed plans for the next cohort of hidden potential, cross-checking profiles, double-checking placements. Beyond the glass walls, the city blurred into a wash of headlights and shadow. She didn't know. Her focus stayed fixed on the names, the faces, the lives quietly changing. The office around her had evolved, but the mission hadn't. Every document she signed, every policy she pushed, carried the same silent oath she made years ago, see the unseen. Her old badge still sat in her drawer. Janitorial Staff 7843, a reminder that beginnings didn't define endings, but they shaped how you walked toward them. Across the hall, Elsa prepared to step down. She didn't announce it loudly. No banners, no farewell tour, just conversations in closed rooms. When she spoke to Leona, it wasn't a formal offer, more like passing a torch lit in quiet defiance. Leona didn't rush to answer. She weighed the gravity of the ask. Leadership wasn't about having power. It was about how you used it when nobody was watching. She thought of the empty maintenance closets she once cleaned, the faces of staff still unseen by the polished world above them. She didn't need promises or guarantees. She just needed the same resolve that carried her from silence to voice. Days bled into weeks without fanfare. Leona didn't campaign. She didn't posture. She worked. She mentored. She listened. When board members whispered, she let her record speak louder than rumors. Change wasn't built on noise. It was built on consistency, on the refusal to leave people where you found them. Late one evening, she sat alone with a sheet of paper. No resume, no speech, just 3 words scribbled carefully. See the unseen. It wasn't strategy. It was conviction. She folded the note, tucked it into her worn notebook, and returned to work. Winning titles wasn't her aim. Changing lives was. Weeks passed. Leona kept working, her hands steady, her heart focused. When the board offered her the CEO position, the room held its breath. Leona listened carefully, weighing the gravity of their words. Power was tempting. Title was tempting. But she thought of the janitors still unseen, the interns still unheard, the quiet battles yet to be fought. She smiled, calm, resolute. Thank you, she said. But no. A ripple of shock ran through the room. Leona continued, voice clear. I'm staying with hidden potential. The work isn't finished. She stood, shook hands, and left the title behind like an old shadow. Leona didn't change her routine after the title came. She arrived early, stayed late, answered her own calls, listened more than she spoke. The office felt the shift. Meetings ran sharper. Decisions came faster. People realized quickly visibility wasn't a trophy to Leona. It was a responsibility. She championed new training programs, expanded hidden potential, funded scholarships from her own salary. Not charity. Investment. She still kept her first uniform, folded neatly in a drawer at home. Not as a symbol of where she started, but as a reminder of what unseen hands could build if given a chance. Visitors came, often executives, journalists, students wanting to meet the woman who rewrote the rules. Leona greeted them politely but never indulged hero worship. I'm not an exception, she would say. I'm a mirror. She told her story not to inspire pity or awe, but action. The goal was never to become the face of success. It was to dismantle the systems that made her path so rare. When young employees approached her, nervous, hopeful, she didn't talk about resilience. She talked about infrastructure, about building ladders that didn't break under weight, about making sure no one else had to climb invisible. Over time, the bank's culture shifted from survival to empowerment. Promotions were no longer whispers. Opportunities were no longer secrets. Leona saw herself in every staff member who dared to ask for more, to demand better. She made it policy that janitors, assistants, clerks were included in leadership development programs. She made sure recruitment didn't stop at polished resumes. She changed hiring panels to include voices often unheard. These weren't reforms. They were revolutions, quiet, steady, irreversible. And when old barriers crumbled, Leona didn't stand on the rubble. She cleared it away for those coming after. From her modest office tucked away in a quieter wing, Leona watched the future unfold. She didn't need a skyline view or a corner desk. She watched students graduate, interns get promoted, former janitors lead departments. She kept her first uniform neatly folded in a box under her desk, not as a reminder of struggle, but of quiet power. She flipped open her old notebook. 3 words greeted her: see the unseen. Leona smiled. She closed the book, stood up, and stepped into the hallway where new stories were waiting to be written. When Leona finally stepped outside, the sun caught on the building's glass facade. She paused, one last look. She didn't see her reflection. She saw the hundreds who had walked through invisible doors she had helped unlock. She thought of the interns now leading departments, the janitors now signing contracts, the receptionists now negotiating deals. She smiled. The real success wasn't her rise. It was theirs. She adjusted the strap of her bag and walked away, her steps steady, leaving behind a path paved by every silent victory she had claimed without asking permission. Long after Leona left the program she built, the Hidden Potential Initiative spread across industries. Quiet revolutions took root everywhere. At the bank's headquarters, a new building rose, glass, steel, and open doors. Above its entrance, carved in quiet dignity, Leona Baker Hall. New employees passed beneath it daily, unaware of the janitor who had unlocked doors long before they ever arrived. Leona's name wasn't a brand. It was a bridge one she built stone by silent stone, for those who had once been invisible. Stay till the end. The twist redefines what redemption truly means. If you witnessed injustice like this, what would you do? Comment below. Subscribe to Unveiled Wealth, where kindness sparks redemption and silence breaks power. Because the unseen deserve to be seen, and the forgotten deserve a future. Every story we tell is a step toward change. Be part of that change right here, right now.